What is happening, everyone? Welcome to the channel. So I haven't made many videos really on the current situation that's happening in Iran. Obviously, I've covered a lot of the art and culture from Iran throughout the last few years on the channel, and I have a definite appreciation for a lot of the art and the culture, the music, the paintings, the architecture, the history, because the history is so rich and so interesting, and it goes back so far. It's innovative and a lot of inventions and all of that. So it's obviously very disheartening, pretty sad to see what's happening in Iran right now. I'm definitely not a geopolitical expert by any means, but I can see that the people on the ground, the everyday people, are hurting, and yeah, definitely sucks. So this is just a one video about what's happening currently. This is from, I believe, Global News. This is a Canadian newscaster. Iranian regime supporters call for execution of those protesting woman's death. Obviously, Mahsa Amini, who they were talking about, who was apparently not wearing her hijab properly, was the apparent reason for the beating, and subsequently she passed away. And there's been others now in the days after, in the protests that have been happening, that have been killed as well. The government is cracking down, I believe now. They've shut down parts of the internet, and there's definitely some shades, I guess, of what happened in 2019, even though I believe those protests sprung from a similar anger from the population, from the people, specifically involving inflation prices, fuel prices, and just a backlash against the current regime. Let's just take a look at this video, and yeah.
In Tehran, fists and voices raised, not against the regime, but in support, choreographed by a
So this is in Tehran, and it's saying these are all supporters of the current government. So there's people that are also supportive of the government.
Stung by mass protests all week. This march called for those protesters to be executed.
That's pretty insane to me, calling for the protesters to be executed. I could see having a difference of opinion, and maybe you could wish for some sort of punishment for them, but to be executed?
They're supported from abroad, she says, thugs and bad people.
So this woman's saying that basically the protesters are being supported from abroad. Guessing she means the Western countries or Western peoples, and that all the people protesting are thugs and criminals, basically, is what she said, it seems to me. Let's see what she said.
She says, thugs and bad people.
Thugs and bad people.
An army statement promised to confront these enemies, hinting at a crackdown similar to one 3 years ago that killed hundreds of protesters. Now there have been days of protests across the country, sparked by the death of a 22-year-old after she was arrested by Iran's so-called morality police. Mahsa Amini was accused of not wearing her hijab properly. Her death set off angry protests, remarkable since Iran's ayatollahs have allowed no real dissent to their rigid Islamic rule in almost half a century. Now there's support around the world. Outcries and placards in Winnipeg tonight.
Yeah, it seems like Iran has kind of swung back and forth a couple times. Obviously, before 1979, the women, at least, were much more free.
an Iranian expat cutting her hair in protest in Istanbul. At the UN, Iran's president, Ebrahim Raisi, said the West should pay more attention to women's suffering in their own countries.
The Islamic Republic of Iran rejects some of the double standards of some governments vis-à-vis human rights.
After meeting with Raisi, the UN Secretary General delivered a warning.
We call on security forces to refrain from using unnecessary and disproportionate force.
An escalation that's all too possible, given the most serious threat to Iran's leadership in years. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Toronto.
I know in 2019 there was over 1,500 killed when they squashed the protests. So seems to be a little bit of a powder keg happening right now. It's pretty sad, and hopefully it ends. I don't know. It's a very, very difficult situation, obviously. Revolution and pushback against regimes is never easy, and it's kind of hard, sitting here and halfway across the world, or all the way across the world. I don't have the perspective or probably the perspective that anybody has in Iran, or people that have lived in Iran are from that region, whether or not they're Persians or Kurds or Turks. Yeah. All right. We'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Later.